जयम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवराजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सत श्री श्रीमद AC भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन बीबीटी फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जयम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवराजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जयम विष्णुपाद श्रील गौर किशोरदास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। जयम विष्णुपाद श्रील सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जयम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रील जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ सद गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिका श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगामयी यमुनामयी की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरु वृंद की जय। सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि। All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome everyone. Today we are in the study of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter entitled Contents of Gita Summarized. We are at the end of the chapter 271. One more verse and then we are finished with the chapter. 271. Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumsa charite nishprihaha nirmamo nihrankara sasan shantim adhigacchati. Vihaya kama ye sarvan Pumsan charite nispriha nirmamo nirankara sasantim adhigacchati. Vihaya kama ye sarvan pumsan charita nispriha nirmamo nirankara sasantim adhigacchati. Word to word meaning. Vihaya, giving up. Kaman, material desires for sense gratification. Yaha, who. Sarvan, all. Puman, a person. Chariti, lives. Nispraha, desireless. Nirmama, without a sense of proprietorship. Nirankara, without false ego. Saha, he. Santim, perfect peace. Adhigachati, attains. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Purport. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal serviator of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything and everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Real desirelessness is desire for satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavasham idam sarvam. And therefore, he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and that the eternal position of the living entity is therefore never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Swam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Shri Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanostute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I beg for everyone's blessings so that I can speak for my purification at the same time as a service to all the assembled Vaishnavas for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure and my spiritual master's pleasure. So, We are in the chapter 2, and Krishna has summarized the entire Gita in this chapter. Now, when we see the chapter breakdown, the chapter has 72 verses and with 5 sections. Now, the current section is starting from the verse 54 to the 72, and it is comprising of 19 verses. And here, Krishna talks about Sthita Pragya, the person who is fully fixed in Krishna consciousness. So, Krishna is giving out a message that to Arjuna, you be fixed in Krishna consciousness and then fight. And verse 71, today's verse, it is talking about the qualities of a Sthita Pragya, the person who is situated in perfect Krishna consciousness. So what are some of his qualities? Vihaya Kaman Sarva. He has given up all kinds of material desires for sense gratification. And he is Spriha. That means he is without desires. He is desireless. Nirmama. He has given up sense of all possessiveness. And then Nirankara. He is devoid of all false ego. And what is the result of having all these qualities? Santim Adhigachati. He attained perfect peace. Now, if we see the first chapter, how at the end of the first chapter, how Arjuna was going through an emotional trauma. That emotional trauma itself was indicating that he was not peaceful within. And he just simply wants to avoid war. And he's thinking that by avoiding the war, I can actually become peaceful. But actually Krishna here is giving another understanding. Don't change your externals, but change your internal state, inner state. Even that's what we do oftentimes, we look for peaceful surroundings. Whenever we are agitated, we want to go into the peaceful surroundings and thinking that, we will calm down. To some extent, those peaceful surroundings do help us to calm down. But that is only a part of the solution, but that is not the complete solution itself. So, how do we know that? Sometimes we are surrounded by peaceful surroundings, but still we are agitated. So, it is not necessary that our externals is what will reflect completely on our inner state. But our inner state will bring us a state of balance, even when external situation is in turmoil. So the way of peace is not relocation but renunciation. That's what Krishna is calling here for. Usually relocation means moving from one place to another place. And we often see whenever we have conflicts with people in our relationships or at the workplace, people think that, I just need to move out of this situation and let me make a fresh start. And this is what Arjuna is also thinking. Now I am in the midst of the war. Now I have conflict with all these people. I just need to make a fresh start. I just need to go to the forest and just practice renunciation. But Krishna is telling, no, that is not the solution. That can be a part of your solution. What is that part of the solution? Adopt renunciation. But what is renunciation? Renunciation doesn't mean you have to leave and go, but actually maintain a healthy emotional distance from the things you're affected with. Another example, say we like some cricketers. In the cricket play, maybe we are supporting a particular cricket team player or a particular team. If the team is not performing well, then we feel very disappointed. But the same team, if it's playing well, then we are cheered up. But a person who has nothing to do with the cricket, whether the team wins or loses, he's not affected. This is what Krishna is telling. You fight because I want to establish dharma. You don't fight because you are emotionally attached or detached from the people. So renunciation here means we have seeking peace at our original spiritual identity, but not at the bodily level. Because as long as we maintain that misidentification with the body, there can never be complete peace. That we will be discussing now in the further. So what is Krishna telling? Act in knowledge based on this your spiritual identity. Then you will not be agitated and you will not be moved, but rather you will be peaceful. And that's what Prabhupada also mentions. Initially Arjuna was not willing to fight. But as soon as he became Krishna conscious, he fought to best of his ability. Now, how does this renunciation occur? Now Prabhupada again, he states in the purport itself, by understanding one's true position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself, and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is a perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. This is renunciation. Say for example, this phone belongs to someone. Say, suppose this phone belongs to that Mataji, and I have just borrowed it. But now I am saying I am renounced. But how can I renounce when it doesn't belong to even to me? Renunciation should be in the spirit of utilization. That I am renounced, that I am accepting her gift or her mercy and I am utilizing it. But I am not renouncing because in the first place it doesn't belong to me. So when can we truly renounce? We can truly renounce when we understand how the Lord is the proprietor, the true proprietor. And Prabhupada quotes Isha Vasham Idam Sarvam. This is from the Ishopanishad, shloka number 1. Isha Vasham Idam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatam Jagat Tena Taktvena Bunjita Magrihat Kasya Svidhanam. Everything animate and inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well whom they belong to. So what does it mean? Anything in this world, whether it's animate or inanimate, everything is owned and controlled by the Lord in the first place. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, Krishna talks about two kinds of energies, para and apara shakti. Para means the marginal potency, like the living entities who fall in the para shakti. And apara are the earth, water, fire, ether. So, and these are both the energies that belong to the Supreme Lord. At no point one is predominating over the another. And no point one can predominate over another. But if you see in today's world situation, everyone is thinking that, we'll take an example of the current Russia and Ukraine conflict. Each leader is thinking that this land belongs to me. So the Parashakti is thinking that it's predominating the Apara. But in reality, the land doesn't belong to neither this leader or that leader. It doesn't belong to this country or that country. It is the land that belongs to Krishna. And Krishna is the controller and proprietor. And because of lack of this knowledge, there is a conflict. And that conflict is leading to so much distress and anxiety. So anyone who is intelligent, they will understand this point. And they will accept the quota of things that are being allocated to that particular person. Then Prabhupada gives a very nice example. He gives the example of a cow. Cow gives milk, but eats grass. Right? Cow doesn't drink milk, but eats grass. And Prabhupada says milk is meant for the human beings. So this is how the Lord's arrangement is. So when we understand Lord's mercy and accepting it and recognizing Lord's proprietorship, it frees us from the false proprietorship. Okay, this say for again same example. If that Mataji is lending me over her phone, if I am grateful, then I can utilize it and I don't develop any false proprietorship over this phone. But if I don't, then we both will be in a conflict, thinking that this phone belongs to me or this phone belongs to me. And the same thing Krishna again reflects back in Krishna announces in 529 actual peace formula. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhradam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam santirichyati. A person in full full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and a benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. When we understand this relationship that the Lord is the actual proprietor, actual controller, then we are freed from this false proprietorship. That actually contribute to the peace. Now, Lord is a master of material nature and the conditioned souls are under the stringent laws of nature. So, unless one understands, it is not possible to achieve peace individually or collectively. Why? Because the Lord is the supreme predominator and we are predominated. So, only peace can be achieved when there is a complete understanding of this. And Prabhupada says that if one works in such a complete knowledge of the Lord, this is nothing but transcendental knowledge. Now, another important point Prabhupada points out is the root cause of the sin is deliberate disobedience of the laws of nature and also deliberate disobedience of the Lord's proprietorship. This is actually the root cause of any sin. Now, going to the second point, to become desireless. This particular Sthita Pragya is exhibiting the quality of nispriha, desirelessness. So, can we be desireless? Now, what is the size of the soul? It is 1,000 tip of the hair. 1/10,000. No, one. Yeah. Sorry, one. Yes. Okay. Yeah. 1/10,000 tip of the hair. So that means it's so small, but it's pervading all of the entire body. So that means it has nothing to do with the gross or the subtle body. But what is keeping this, the soul in the body? It is the misidentification with the body. It's the ignorance that is making the soul to be in this material body. And then we see in the 13th chapter also how Krishna discusses the workings between the Prakriti, Jiva and the Supreme Lord. The super soul sanctions, the Prakriti facilitates, and the Jiva gets different material bodies. And not only that, the entire material world is based on one thing called the desire. It is the desire of the soul that the entire material creation is created. In the 15th chapter, first sloka, Krishna talks about upside down banyan tree. So, where do you find an upside down tree? Have we had that practical experience? Prabhupada says that if you go onto the bank of a lake or a water reservoir, the reflection of the tree from the land, it falls on the water. In the water you can experience that upside down tree. So what is this material world? This is an upside down tree. This is a reflection of the spiritual world. And why is the material world in the first place created? Because the Jiva has this desire to imitate and behave like the Lord. This desire itself is the cause of the material world. Because Lord doesn't want a forceful love, and He wanted us to naturally come towards Him, not by force. So He facilitated, go and enjoy, try to enjoy without me. And then this material world is there. But the same desire, which is actually the cause for the living entity to be here, the same desire, if we change the quality of the desire, it will help us to turn back to the spiritual world. This is what Prabhupada also talks. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. Now, Prabhupada gives an example. Say someone is having a desire to drive a motor car. So, it's okay, you can have that desire. But now, what is the change of quality of desire here? Drive the motor car for preaching purpose, for Krishna consciousness. So that way, it's the same desire, but you're changing the entire purpose of the desire. Now, not only that, there are gradations of desires. And these desires are facilitated by the three modes of material nature. So, what are the gradations of desire? There are people who desire for material enjoyment. They are called karmis. And there are people who desire for liberation. These people are called jnanis. There are people who desire for material siddhis, mystic powers. These are called yogis. And because these desires are not in relation to the Supreme Lord, they are lusty and they can never be peaceful. But a devotee is in tune with Krishna's satisfaction. He is understanding his real position. He is always peaceful. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this shloka. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atiya Santa Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Khame Sakala Asanta. So, anyone who is after fruitive actions or after liberation or material mystic siddhis, they cannot be peaceful. But only devotees can be peaceful. Now the question comes, how do we handle these desires? Because we may fall into one of the categories, right? We may be falling into a category of karmis or jnanis or yogis. Or if we are devotees, then that's good. Pure devotees, then that's good. But if we fall in one of these categories, then how do we handle them? By engaging them in devotional service. And now again a question comes, how does devotional service act upon controlling the desires? The four Kumaras is talking to Prithu Maharaj, and they say, Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karma shrayam grahitam udgratayanta santa tadvannarikta matayo yatayo pirudha shroto ganastamaranam bhaja vasudevam. The four Kumaras are instructing Prithu Maharaj saying, the devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of Krishna can easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. But the same thing is very difficult, the hard-knotted desires, to overcome them is difficult for the non-devotees, like jnanis and yogis. Although they try to stop by the waves of the sense gratification, but they cannot. That's why you engage in devotional service. In the service of the Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Now, definitely this statement is very nice, but we want a testimony, right? We want to see an example who has actually being engaged in devotional service and not affected by the material desires, because that will give us inspiration to take up devotional service. Now, one such devotee from the Srimad Bhagavatam, I chose, there are so many Vaishnavas, but I chose this particular Vaishnava, is Maharaj Ambarish from the Canto 9. Maharaj Ambarish is the emperor of the entire world. It's not one state, one city, one village, or one town. Entire world. He's the emperor. Now what is Ambarish doing? He's always engaging his mind in meditating the lotus feet of Krishna, and his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna, and his eyes in seeing the deity or the places or going to the temples, and his sense of touch by hugging the Vaishnavas, and then his sense of smell by smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to Krishna, and tongue in tasting Lord's prasad, and in legs going to the holy places, and his head by bowing down before the Lord. In this way he was engaged 24 hours, and he never desired anything for sense gratification. And in this way he actually was able to increase his attachment to the Lord, at the same time was free from all material desires. And not only that, he performed many yagnas. Many yagnas. He was not neglectful in his duties. As a king, he was training his citizens how to be Krishna conscious, and he was performing all welfare activities which are necessary. And but at the same time, he was unattached. Even the demigods, they were looking at the opulence of Ambarish Maharaj, and he was thinking that they were actually feeling jealous. So you can imagine, but that is actually not touching him. He's not feeling that sense of proprietorship. Because he's completely in Krishna consciousness. One second. Oh, sorry. So now Ambarish is a very good example. Okay, he's Mahabhagavat. He's already in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's the epitome of the devotional service, because he's also characterized that he's a perfection of the 9 processes of devotional service. Now one may ask, how can I relate to Ambarish Maharaj? How can I have a practical application of this particular verse 71? We are not Sthita Pragya, we are not Arjuna, we are not Ambarish Maharaj, but rather I can say for myself, I am a Kali Yuga person. I am trained in schools, universities, colleges, where they taught me how to develop and increase material desires. I am trained and exposed to that environment. So for me to become desireless, to leave all the sense of proprietorship, becomes like a myth. But then Srila Prabhupada is actually our savior. Why? Because he gives everything in his purports. Then Prabhupada gives a practical engagement even for us. In the 9th canto, 4th chapter, 26, in the same pastime of the Ambarish, Prabhupada talks about performing austerities at our level. Severe austerities in the practice of devotional service are of many varieties. For example, then Prabhupada is quoting, in worshipping the deity in the temple, there are certainly laborious activities. Shri Vigraharadhana Nityanana Shringara Tan Mandira Majanodo. One must decorate the deity, cleanse the temple, bring water from Ganges and Yamuna, continue the routine work, perform arti many times, prepare first class food for the deity, prepare dresses, and so on. And not only that, in this way, one must constantly be engaged in various activities, and the hard labor involved is certainly austerity. Similarly, the hard labor involved in preaching, preparing literature, preaching to atheistic men, distributing literature door to door is of course an austerity. Tapo divyam putrakena. Such austerity is necessary. So such austerity in devotional service purifies one's material existence automatically. Such austerity will lead us to the constitutional position of our devotional service. Because every day We are doing all these activities, all these practical engagements in devotional service for the pleasure of Krishna. Although at the moment I may not realize that I am Krishna's eternal servant. I may not have developed desirelessness. May not be complete Krishna conscious. But by every day engaging in these activities, this is actually, Prabhupada says, these are austerities. By engaging in them, we will come to a practical realization that we are actually the servitor of Krishna. And in this way, one can give up material desires. And as soon as one is freed from material desires, he is freed from repeated birth, death, old age and disease. And what does it mean? It means we are paving our path back home, back to Godhead. So, in conclusion, we can see the way to increase attachment to the Lord will keep us away from the material desires. And by rendering devotional service, the devotee becomes akama, desireless. And he is always situated in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada says, the only difference between material world and spiritual world is the mentality of the service. Here we want to serve our senses, but in the spiritual world we want to serve Krishna's senses. This is the only mentality. So, nirbandhe Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya uchyate. So, wherever, when there is no mentality of service to Supreme Personality of Godhead, all those activities become material. And Prabhupada gives an example also. Construction of a skyscraper and construction of a temple, like externally shows the same enthusiasm. But they both endeavors are different. One is material and one is spiritual. So, even though we might be engaging in material activities, but if Krishna is in the center, then it has been spiritualized. And by doing this, we become Krishna conscious. So spiritual activities should not be confused with material and should not be given up. And this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. You don't think fighting is material, but fight because I wanted you to fight. So he is telling, by doing this you will become desireless. You are already giving up your false ego and you are already nirmamo. You are giving up the sense of proprietorship, and at the same time you are attaining this peace, complete peace. So any devotee consider all these activities, spiritual activities, he is no longer performing material activities. Now also we are very fortunate to be in the society of the devotees, where there are many devotees who actually intelligently plan many things, many activities for Krishna. And Prabhupada says a devotee intelligently plans to do so many things for Krishna that his stagnant material desires are overflooded with spiritual desires. But just by being in their association, also it will bring us to the spiritual platform. That we are catching up the fire of enthusiasm of those devotees who have developed these spiritual desires. So, in a jest, that when we understand the Lord is the Supreme Proprietor and the relationship with His energies and also practical engagement in devotional service will lead us to become pure Krishna conscious. I will stop here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions or comments or corrections? Yes,
I have a comment that English is in your first language, right?
No.
But you're very easy to, you talk very good, easy to understand, and your class is very interesting, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
As a comment.
Thank you. Thank you everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo. Finished for the day. That's right.